everyone. A big welcome back to the Nick Elston Show, Season 6. They said it'll never work. Actually, I said it'll never work, one of the two. But here we are again, Season 6, Episode 1. I'm very excited to kick off a brand new season in a brand new year with an amazing person in the shape of Rohan Sivajoti. Big round of applause! Woo! Hey, Rohan.
I don't know what I'm meant to do there. What am I meant to do? Is this like, how do you receive applause? Is that how you... awkward. I look like Bill Gates doing the Microsoft dance on the stage years ago.
It could be worse. You could be doing like the whole kind of Prime Minister Theresa kind of dance. That'd be a really weird thing, wouldn't it?
Oh,
yeah. And for those kind of listening to this, I'm really sorry you're missing the moves being busted right now. You catch it up on video when you can. Rohan, big welcome to the show. I'm trying to get you on for a couple of seasons, and I'm glad it's happened. I think you're an amazing guy doing amazing things in lots of different ways. But that's enough about kind of what I think of you. I think it's time for everybody else to get to know you a little bit more. Tell us who you are, what you do, and where you're from.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for the introduction, Nick. And yeah, it's been a long time coming, isn't it? But it's great to be here. It's good. I'm Rohan Sivajoti. I am my predominant things are father of 2 young children. Hi, Harrison and Raphael, 6 and 10 months. Outside of that, I guess I worked in financial services most of my life. But my main passion really is trying to create rooms and organisations that are way more inclusive than what they should be at the moment. And I get to channel that through my business, NextGen Planners. Everything that we do there is working towards a better overall society and place to be in financial services. And that's there you go, a very short potted history.
What a vision to have. Yeah. Oh, that's it. Just that. Just changing the world, changing the face of it. What has to be said actually is still one of the kind of last bastions of traditional business, I guess, in its majority. And it is changing. We've had Adam Owen on before, we've had Dan Graham, and people alongside you doing great things to kind of, like you say, change the shape of how things look and how things feel. And having been a part of your community, as in being brought in to kind of collaborate over the past few years, it's amazing what you're doing in lots of different ways. And we'll definitely get on to that. But I want to kind of take you way back. Call this open therapy. No, I want to take you way. So tell us the kind of baby Rohan. Tell us about growing up, where that was. Tell us about education and kind of your formative years.
Yeah, okay. And I guess this is actually relevant to where I am now. So formative years for me, born in North London in Chingford. My mum is English, my dad's Sri Lankan. And I've had the greatest upbringing anyone could ever have. I'm not going to say too much more than that. In that, lived there till I was 8. I've got 3 younger brothers who are all brilliant as well. Then moved up north to a place called Wetherby in West Yorkshire. That was slightly more interesting growing up. In terms of there were 2 families of colour in the whole of Wetherby, so a town of 20,000 people. Yeah. There was us and the Gills were the other family, and it was slightly different challenge. It wasn't a challenge that I noted at the time. I can come on to that. But then went off to university, did all that thing, moved to London for a few, did the whole travelling thing, of course. Got to do the travelling thing, right? And then moved to London for a few years, back to Wetherby, and now I live up in Darlington. And I've been here for about 6 years now, and absolutely love it. So yeah, it was. Honestly, I had the most amazing. My parents are sensational, unbelievable upbringing. Never had to want for anything. Always got everything that I wanted. Effectively, they've just been incredible. Even the way that they brought us up, it was very much go and make your own mistakes sort of thing. Not with an authoritarian hand or whatever it is. But I guess growing up was really interesting because, especially because my parents actually went out in secret for 8 years. So they grew up in a time where predominantly couples were of the same race or whichever, and having a mixed race couple was a very difficult thing. My dad was supposed to have an arranged marriage and the like, and went against the grain. So they met at work. Yeah, went out in secret for 8 years. He tells me these stories of being, punched in the face when he's walked into bars with my mum, and hanging out of windows, all sorts of scraps he's got into because he was with my mum, and evidently very different to where we are today, I think. I was, again, yeah, I mentioned before growing up in West Yorkshire, and at the time it was no real issue to me, but it isn't until I look back on it that I think about what it means to grow up, I guess, as a mixed race person in Yorkshire. And obviously, I guess a lot of the stuff from the cricket club's been pretty well documented at Yorkshire. But it's there were instances, obviously, where I've been called various things and that aren't repeatable and whatever. But the one that I do sort of mention to people, which was one of my nicknames in school, was BPIT, so BPIT, and that stood for Best Paki in Town. Okay, and I had no affiliation with Pakistan whatsoever. It's not accurate. It's racist. But at the time, Nick, I loved it, and I loved it because I was the best. And that meant I was accepted, and amongst a group of people at my school, because you had people coming from other areas, so there were more people of colour there. I was the best, so I was accepted, and I never really picked that up until, I guess, years later, after, when you grow up a bit, you realise, wow, like, how wrong is that? And something I always, when I reflect back through life and I think about where my parents came from, the things that they had there, compared to a watered down version of my upbringing and things like that. This is why I always talk about how far we've come, and like as society and everything else, and that's why I'm so bullish on the amazing work that people are doing in these fields. Because yes, we can sit here, and of course there's still things to sort. There's loads to sort. But we've come so far that nickname wouldn't fly in a school now. There's no way that I get called out in an instant. And, people don't get punched in the face walking into bars because of somebody of a different race. So we've come an awful long way. We've got further to go, but what progress we've made. And like I said, God, my upbringing was pretty idyllic, in all honesty. No real issue, Nick.
Do you think, and thank you for sharing so candidly as well, do you think that traveling helped kind of fuel that passion for kind of more balance, equality, whatever you want to call that thing, that very often, like you said, people get stuck in these mindsets because they don't really stray far from where they are, and that whether their beliefs or even geography? Do you think travel's broadened that kind of mission for you?
Oh, massively so. I know it's really cliche. They say, travel broadens the mind, but it genuinely does. You soon come to realise that every country you go to, we're all the same being, really. We all just want to be happy. We all just, it's not much more complicated than that, is it? It's than kind of, we want to be happy and do the things that make you happy. And yeah, I mean, also in terms of, so I found a thing the other day. I sent it to a WhatsApp group the other day. I found a book I took with me traveling. It's just an empty notebook, and I used to write things down in it. And there's about 10 business ideas in there. This is in a 6-month period of just stuff that, like, and most of them were nonsense. But one of them I look back on and I thought, oh my God, if I'd have done that, I'd be like some multi-zillionaire right now. I was like 24, and I was like, this is an amazing idea that somebody has taken and run with it. It's been incredible. But I was thinking, God, if I'd have done that. And traveling was unbelievable. Probably some of the best 6 months of my life. And yeah, just I don't know, so much fun. I recommend it to anybody who's in that situation, who's got the opportunity to do it, to go and broaden the mind, have a look around the world, be inspired. I've been to 67 countries now.
Wow.
So I was trying to get to 100 before I'm 40, but I'm fast running out of time, Nick. I've only got 4 years left. So
You
But there we
mentioned
go.
education. Did you always have in mind to get into the space that you're in now, or was it kind of, did you? I know it's a lot of people from the financial planning community use these words of like fell into. Was it something you fell into, or was it something that was by design?
You know what? I'm the only person who didn't fall into it, I think, that you'll ever speak to. So no, it was very much make it by design. Although, so my dad had worked for financial services all of his life, and had his own. So again, probably relevant to this, I guess, is that my dad was the first insurance broker consultant in the whole of London of colour ever.
Wow.
And the firm he worked for, he was continually leading the way there. 10 years after he retired, he received a letter from one of his former bosses, which apologised for overlooking him for promotion year after year because of the colour of his skin. So this guy basically been eating up at him, and wrote a letter to my dad about that because he just needed to get it off his chest, which is amazing, really. Incredible, really. But and my dad, arrived in this country 7 years old. Off a boat that took him 2.5 weeks to get here from Sri Lanka. I should say a legal boat, not an illegal boat. I know that's all in the news at the moment. He legally came to these shores. Lived in a 2-bed house with his 8 siblings and had 3 jobs at 15 and grafted his way to everything he got. Never had a thing. So he's my absolute idol. His work ethic is completely unrivaled, and it's I'm interested in because he had a financial advice practice. The idea was I'd go to uni, I did a financial services degree, and take it over. I wasn't ready at the end of it to do that, so he gave that to his mate basically. But no, I did a financial services degree. But my other 2 options, Nick, I don't know if many people know this actually, were I either wanted to be. My 3 options were financial services degree, go into the police. I've still got some inkling there. I might do something at some point. And the other one is drama school. So Bretton Hall in Leeds. I was thinking about going there and scratching the thespian itch, which again I've got some plans to do at some point. But yeah, I took the safe option. Let's just say.
I think the work ethic thing is it's no wonder actually you're such a driven person. Like I said, it seems like you had a fantastic role model to look at when it comes to driving forward and stuff, and having to carve out a new life essentially.
He's an absolutely phenomenal guy, and you can think of all that on top of supporting the family or the things you went to do with my mum and everything else. He's just brilliant. It's amazing to have that person around. Do I have his work ethic? No, I don't. But do I have that drive to make the world a slightly better place and make people that bit happier? Perhaps people who are underrepresented, things like that. Yes, and that's mainly because of him. Because I don't want anyone to ever feel like he had to feel growing up.
But that's,
and how at times I had
Sorry.
to feel growing up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, go on, Nick.
I think that's certainly an interesting one that kind of, I think there were different ways of working. So how you kind of showed work ethic before was you would get in earlier than it had to be, away later than you needed to be. It's kind of very much kind of being around and being seen to be around, isn't it? But I think actually the way of the world now, and I think especially the kind of the way that you do what you do in terms of your visibility, the technology, the platforms, and everything else, actually you're doing that stuff just in a very different way.
Yeah, totally. And it's and as well, I know this actually because I come from a place of privilege, to be honest. My dad didn't have the privilege and didn't have the tools and the skills and the ability and the backing and all that. To probably have the ability, but not the backing and stuff to be able to go and make a wider difference and all that kind of thing. But the difference he made is still phenomenal. It was to his family and everything else. It's just I come from a place of privilege. I like I said, I've had an idyllic upbringing. I don't want for anything, and because I've got that base, I feel like it's, I don't know, I feel like it's an easier place to launch from, I guess.
But I know from the work that I've done in the community that, and you've been one of kind of my biggest champions in the space, that you're really passionate about kind of raising things like mental health awareness, and actually sometimes it's very much it's links to things like gender, race, even sexuality, and things amongst the community. All of this stuff has an impact, and it does collectively get kind of grouped as inclusion in that sense, and I can kind of see that. But what's your drive in terms of the mental health and well-being side of things? Why is that such a passion for you? Because it is a passion. I can tell when people do things because it's a tick box exercise, and you're a million miles away from that point. You're doing it because you care about people. Is there a driving force behind that?
Yeah, 100%. So I'm that thing. What do people call them? People pleasers. I'm a people pleaser, right? Which, by the way, I don't have a problem with. I mean, if somebody is, just think about what that phrase is for a second. A people pleaser, somebody who's trying to please people. Like, if somebody's got an issue with me because I'm trying to please people, then that's fine. I can deal with that. Do you know what I mean? If it was People Strangler, I'd have more of an issue with it. You know,
that's a valid option sometimes. Though, let's face it, even for the nicest guy.
But of course, it doesn't come without its challenges. Being a people pleaser, but it's a great challenge to have. Yeah, everyone I come across, I want to be happy. I want to, you know, I'm always there. Put oxygen masks on other people before myself, sort of thing. And but I guess that the whole drive from the mental health side of things and stuff like that. And I think you've had Steve Nelson on the show before once upon a time,
yes,
maybe,
yeah.
Or you, yeah. You know, Steve's a great friend of mine, that became a great friend of mine during. So, okay, let me just go back a little bit here. Sure. Like I said, idyllic lifestyle, right? Nothing had ever gone wrong for me in my life. I promise you, like, nobody close to me had ever died. I'd lost the close person to me that ever died was grandparents. But again, no immediate relatives, friends, touch wood, nothing like that as bad as ever happened to me. So the first thing that did was a divorce that knocked me for six. And I don't mind admitting that it did, because I didn't know how to deal with it. I had no idea. I'd never suffered. And it was really tough. And I don't know how it happened. It was via Twitter or something, but me and Steve just sort of got chatting, and it was just at the right time. It was just somebody that I always say some of the best people in your life sometimes are the ones who are not your closest friends and family, because they tell you what you want to hear, but more actually sometimes a complete stranger. Yeah. And Steve was kind of that. Like, I knew him through financial services, but we weren't like close mates or anything like that, because they're just a bit more objective and they're willing to listen and stuff like that. And he was, you know, fantastic for me throughout that period. We've become close friends. We've done some really cool stuff together. There's something we've just done together which I can't talk about, but we'll be coming to your we'll be coming to your TV sets later this year.
Look forward to that.
Interesting. So that's cool. And it's I guess it kind of started there, in that I didn't want people to be unprepared for what is effectively the first grief thing in life. So the first thing that happens. And not long after all that happened, I then got with my new partner, and then 3 months into that relationship, she got cancer. And that was obviously another grieving process. But I think because I'd been through that first one, I didn't know what she was going through. I can't imagine what someone with cancer is going through. Touch wood, thank God, you know, she's absolutely fine now. Wow. But I kind of had more of an understanding of what the process would be. You know, the whole Kubler-Ross grief cycle with the 5 stages and things like that. Like, that was me to a T, right? And I kind of saw that in her and in someone else. And, you know, since we've had other difficulties, we've lost 2 babies. We've now had one 10 months ago, thankfully, and he's absolutely fantastic. But each time I've been more aware and like know what's about to happen and stuff like that. It is a process, and I've got up on stages and talked about this kind of thing and whatever else, because I want people to be prepared. I want people to know that when this happens, this is a normal reaction. Like, you're not some crazy guy or crazy girl or whatever, who's like making all these random emotions and feelings and whatever else. Like, it's a thing. And like I said before, the other side of it is, I don't want anyone to ever feel like I did in financial services, where you go into rooms of people and you look around and there's no one there who looks like you, is, remotely the same race, gender, whichever it is, and you just sexuality, whatever, and you're looking around the room and you're going, this can't be the room that I want to work in for the rest of my life, or my peers. And it's kind of how NextGen started, really. It was just a case of create the room. If you can't see the room, create the room. And I never want anybody from anywhere any group of society who's underrepresented or whatever within financial services to ever feel lonely, to ever be in a place where they can't see anyone like themselves. So we feel like we're as inclusive as we get. It's a pleasure working with people like you, who totally get that as well. And long may it continue.
Yeah, and likewise, I think for people like yourself who are in other fields talking about this stuff, I think it's probably even more powerful, because as I said, because this is all I talk about. And I'm not saying it can get lost in the noise, but for other people within different spaces, and like you said, from different identities and that kind of stuff, actually talking about this stuff is so important. And grief is huge. And certainly over the past 3 years, that there's also been this kind of like this low level grief of, it's not just the loss of human life, although that sadly has been the case. It's the loss of a way of life, that everyone's had to change how they live and how they work and how they learn. And grief has played such a huge part in that. And it's such an important topic to bring up under the umbrella of mental health and wellbeing, for sure. I'm excited to hear about what you and Steve got coming next as well. So I'm going to stay tuned on that one. That's cool.
I'm genuinely not allowed to say because of various contracts, but it'll be funny when it's out. Of course, I'll let you know when it's out.
Yeah,
the end of 2020.
I'll make sure I share it from my channels. It's good.
There you go. Yeah.
I mean, you've also mentioned, and you alluded to, obviously, the recent, should we say, issues with cricket and conversations around race and discrimination. I know cricket is a massive passion for you, and we were talking about this just before we hit record, actually. So I guess firstly, let's start with the kind of the great stuff. Tell us about your kind of experiences with cricket and leading to the great news you had recently. Then if you can kind of talk us through, so I know you gave a fantastic opinion piece at the time when the first kind of rumblings of the discrimination stuff that was coming out of Yorkshire. You did a great post on this. Could you kind of explain that as well, please?
Yeah. First of all, my love of cricket it's unrivaled, but again, it comes from my dad. My dad was an amazing cricketer. He was in Essex's setup. I think he probably would have gone on to play for Essex and all the rest of it, but at the time didn't have any of his own gear because he couldn't afford it, was borrowing off people, was still in their academy, but borrowing gear, which is absolutely ridiculous. But he had to take on more jobs to support the family, and ultimately his cricket fell by the wayside. Now, when I arrived out of the womb and picked up a cricket bat left-handed like he did, it was like all these Christmases had come at once, I think. So
there's an image I'm not going to shake the rest of the day. Thank you very much.
So I was in Yorkshire's academy and things like that as well till I was about 18, 19 or so. I played with a lot of the lads who are in the England setup now and things like that. And it was decent. I wasn't great. I was okay. I'm still okay now. But was never really good enough because I didn't quite have that drive that my dad had. When people want to train, you need to train 7 days a week. I was, then it was 6, then it was 5. And then you got to 17 or 18, and then women turn up, and then it goes to 3, and then it goes to 2, and it's just how it is. And sorry, I should say women and alcohol. Is that the 17, 18 bit? That's where that starts to all kick in, doesn't it? Yeah. Yes, I've absolutely loved it. I've just become an MCC playing member, which is amazing. To get to go and represent the MCC all over the world, which would be amazing. So,
If I'm honest, I mean, that'd be
yeah.
something I'd be absolutely shouting my head off about. And it's like, oh yeah, just do this and do this. And
No,
it's an amazing thing, mate. It's
I can't
genuinely
wait for that. I can't wait.
so
I genuinely
powerful.
can't wait for that. I mean, so there's some guys I know just come back from Uganda for 2 weeks playing cricket in Uganda, spreading the word of cricket and everything else. I'm like, oh, God, amazing. So anyway, so really looking forward to that. And when all this, and Azim Rafiq, an amazing, brave guy he is, and the fact that he's now being forced from the country effectively, I think is a disgrace on the whole of the UK. It's a real stain on us, actually, that somebody who can have the courage to speak up about this gets treated in such a way, and we wonder why more people don't come forward. Now, I've heard this thing recently where people go, "Well, why didn't he say anything at the time?" And if you think back to what I said earlier about the whole BPIT nickname in school, why didn't I say anything at the time? Well, at the time, I didn't realise. And you don't. This is the thing with this is the thing sometimes with historic racism and that kind of thing is you don't actually realise it's happening until you reflect later on. You go, oh, God, that's a thing. Or times move on where that becomes unacceptable. I will say one thing that I don't really like is a lot of people being held to account for stuff they said a long time ago. Now, fair enough, if something they've said is wrong, and they hold their hands up and go, look, wrong. But I don't feel like the comments that people made 15, 20 years ago, whether they should be cancelled or whatever it is. I feel you're judging. It's difficult to judge periods of time against each other and what's acceptable and that kind of thing. And I get that. Just needs to be some hands held up and look, I see that's wrong, whatever. But it's, I listen to everything that Azim says, and unfortunately, I can see how that all happened, and I can see, this isn't somebody who's lying in my eyes. This is somebody who's speaking his truth, and I can understand where it's coming from. Unfortunately, and I mean, I'm lucky enough to play loads of games of cricket. I'd never had anything on the pitch until 2 years ago. I had my first experience of being racially abused on the pitch by an opposition player who was subsequently banned for a period of time. But the incident that happened, I was called something. But I think probably the best thing that happened, and I guess this is for everyone listening, this is what people mean by allyship, is the guy at the other end who was batting with me he was 22 at the time. And he probably won't mind me saying he's not the sharpest tool in the shed, Nick. There isn't a lot going on in his head, right? And but what he did was he heard it, he took his helmet off, he dropped his bat, he dropped his gloves, and he charged towards him at the other end and shouted at this lad saying, you can't say that. We all heard you. You can't say that. You proper got in his face and stuck up for me because I didn't say anything. I heard it, but I just walked away from where I was batting and kind of turned around to the umpires and went like that because I don't know. I'm not a big fan of confrontation anyway, so I just kind of stepped away. But that's allyship. That's someone who will stick up for someone and become an ally. And I've got and again, this isn't the smartest guy. He just knows right from wrong, and he knows when he hears something and whatever else. And fair play to him. My respect for him massively through the roof. Super bloke. So it's obviously really difficult to comment on the Zoom stuff and things like that because it's all this is for him to say to that. But can I imagine it all happening? Yeah.
And from your point,
somebody who just
Sorry, so I appreciate. Obviously, it's difficult to kind of comment on that situation having not been in it. But from your point of view, when you've put your kind of commentary on the situation, or when you've put your opinions out there, have you ever experienced pushback on or anything coming back at you online when you've put opinion out there?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't. I mean, the only thing that I'm on, Nick, is LinkedIn. I'm not on Twitter or Facebook or anything
Yeah, same here.
like that anymore because I just found them toxic places to be. What wasn't adding anything to my life. It was just winding me up, really.
When did
So
you make that
I'm not
decision,
on
Rohan?
any of
That's
those
an
things.
interesting one. When did you decide to leave the social media?
Probably maybe 4 years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I just you know, it's like with anything, you find yourself scrolling or whatever it is, and you just into this endless mire of, you know, you find yourself 10 minutes into a feed on Boris Johnson's latest lie or whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but and you're into some rabbit hole of, you know, people going at each other. And you just think, what is this doing? Like, why am I consuming this? So I mean, like, it's even like the news now. I go on the BBC website for about 5 minutes every day, and that's it. I'm just, politics has always been an interesting one for me, really, in that I have no interest in it because I'm not willing to do anything about it.
Yeah.
So if I'm willing to do anything about it, then I'll get involved in it, and I'll listen to it, and I'll opine on it and all the rest of it. But I'm not going to let it bother me if, you know, these guys can do what they want to do, whatever, because I'm not willing to stand. I'm not willing to do anything about it. That might change one day, but in fact, no, I don't think it will. There's way too many skeletons in that closet, Nick. So I'd definitely be cancelled within 3 seconds of announcing anything. So there you go.
See, this is I know it's a huge subject in it, but I think we've kind of mentioned cancel culture a couple of times as part of this conversation, and that's a really interesting one because there's also a potentially damaging effect of that people kind of have this attitude that you're either with me or against me, you know, that it takes out the middle ground in that sense. And I think that's why I'm always interested from people that are not outspoken, that's not the right word, but people that are putting an opinion out there. Actually, do they counter any kind of pushback or challenge, which actually isn't rational? And certainly, like you said, social media had that impact for me, and that's why I decided to leave those social platforms a while ago. But I'm always keen to ask people like yourself who are entrepreneurial kind of mindset, people that are, especially with this conversation around flexible working, about kind of finding that new normal kind of post-pandemic in terms of how we work. How do you find you best work? Because do you have like set working hours, and then you switch off from going online? So obviously being part of a community as well, that I imagine there's constant connection if you needed it. So how do you like to work, and how do you balance that with home life?
Good question. Yeah. So
Profile Me is a super shareable mobile application designed to help professionals grow their personal brand. Proudly paperless, this powerful tool packs the power of web, social media, and messaging into one beautifully designed interface that offers a unique and human-centric way to connect and build trust with clients. Easy to share on any platform and easy to save to any phone's home screen. With Profile Me, getting referred has never been easier.
Recently been diagnosed with ADHD, which won't come as a surprise to a lot of people that know me.
Okay.
And that has been really comforting, actually, because it explains away a lot of things that I've, I guess, thought about myself over the years. Like I've considered myself lazy at times, or not able to concentrate, or just scattergun, or jump from this to that, or whatever it is. And it actually explains a lot. And I found that really comforting. Really, really comforting, actually.
What was the final push
is great.
to kind of get help or to get a diagnosis on this? Was there a tipping point, or was it?
No, there wasn't. I don't think there was a tipping point per se. It was just I'd just been reading up more around it, and the more I read around it, I was like, oh right, you know, when you resonate with something quite a lot, and you're like, oh, that's describing me, and then I just went down the rabbit hole, and there it is. So so my I work really well in mornings, but struggle in afternoons, but then better again in evenings. So I try and structure my day like that, where I work pretty hard in the morning, try and see the little boy as much as possible in the afternoon, and my other boy before he goes to bed, and then crack on again in the evenings. Which actually suits me amazingly, because then I get to see my kids all the time, and I get to work when I want to work and stuff like that. But it's interesting that, and I guess touched on something you sort of spoke about before around people's opinions and whatever else, and it's just respect, really. A lot of this is respect, and respect for people's opinions. You know, you can be different, you can think different things and whatever else, and you can just respect them. It doesn't matter if you don't agree with them. It's fine. I totally respect your opinion. You know, we're all different. It's great. It's great, isn't it? We can have this conversation because we're all different. But it's the same with working patterns and things like that. You know, we have people within the business who are different. Yeah. No, I was just going to say, look, we have people within the business who are entirely different. You mentioned Adam Owen earlier. He's I'm not sure that there's an hour of the day which isn't a good working hour for him, but he just loves it. You know, he's entirely different to where I'm at, and it's an amazing thing. I think people just need to find their own way, really, with that kind of stuff. Give them the freedom to find the best hours for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. And do you think also that's one of those kind of overhangs from traditional business that we kind of, it's another conditioning element that we always need to be on the ball. There's that kind of hangover still of very often we'll feel guilty if we switch off at kind of 3 p.m, but we'll feel nothing about working at 11 o'clock at night kind of thing. It's a double-edged.
Yeah, I know those boundaries. But so the other thing is as well, and this again comes to privilege and equity and equality and all these kind of things, is when people say, oh, it's okay, you can work from home, right? Work from home for one person is completely different from another, right? I'm very fortunate. I've got a house where I've got a separate room that I can work in, okay? But even that for me, because this is the height of my privilege, right, isn't enough for me, because I've got my own space, my own room. It's massive, it's brilliant, but that's still not good enough for me, because I can, in the faint distance in the background, I can hear my 10-month-old crying or giggling. And I sit there and I finish a meeting, and the first thing I should be on to then I'm in work. Next thing I should answer some emails, go to the next meeting, whatever. But the first thing I do is I get up and I go to the other room and see if he's okay, or, you know, like want to go play with him or whatever else. And that's a distraction. So actually where I'm doing this from now, and you'll see it's just a really empty room, it's because I've got a tiny room opposite my favorite bar, which is quite helpful. But a tiny room in a building, which I rent out just to come and work from, even though I've got a room in my house for that, right? This is the height of privilege, because like I need to not have that distraction. I need to just go and do some work, right? But so when people say, oh yeah, we've got flexible politics, working from home, whatever, if you're in a situation where the only place you can work from is the kitchen table, and you're saying work from home, and it's, you know, you're spending 9 to 5 on some crickety wooden chair, like hunched over the wrong height or whatever it is. I look like I'm Michael Jackson Thriller here, right? And you're like, you know, like you know what I mean. So it means totally different things to different people,
right?
And you know, if we are going to say to people work from home and all that kind of thing, yes, give them the boundary in terms of time, like you said, but give them the equipment, the ability to do it, appreciate their surroundings, all that kind of thing, because it's just not the same for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I think also the traditional nature of business is we kind of get coached to take a competitive approach to conversation. So whatever our belief is, that's what we try and either through influence or instruction, we try and get everybody else. I think it's very different now. It's about human to human conversations. Like you said, not everybody lives in not even a safe place, sadly, sometimes, let alone a happy place or a quiet place. And yeah, I think you're right. But I think that's where maybe things are improving a lot, that there's a lot more understanding around everybody's situations now. It's taken away a lot of generalism from leadership, hasn't it? It's now more about emotional leadership than it is around instructional leadership for me.
100%. But how good is that? What a shift that is.
Really.
Like it's a real different type of leader, and I think we're starting to see that in organisations. I see the leaders now becoming different faces and a lot more emotionally intelligent. And you know, in fact, we're in the middle of training at the moment on neurodiversity training, and how different people work and all this kind of thing. And shout out to John Dunkley, who's created some amazing stuff in that space. And it is, these are things I think in the past it would have been some kind of training on how to, strategically deliver a solution to your staff or whatever else. Like it's not that anymore. It's we're all upskilling on just becoming better emotional leaders, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing I wanted to touch on before we kind of sadly bring it to a close, so I talked to you for hours, maybe the longest episode ever, is I wanted to talk about actually the formation of NextGen Planners, because actually that's something we haven't spoken about with our previous guests. And obviously, as you were in right from the beginning, it was your kind of your baby in that sense. Tell us about how the idea came about and how you started to put that into fruition.
Yeah, sure. So it was a complete accident, really. So I went to an event, and I won't say that the professional body behind it or whatever, but I went to an event, and first of all, I was in this room, and there were 7 sessions, and 6 of the sessions were on retirement income strategies. Okay, and you don't have to be in financial services to know that 6 out of 7 sessions on retirement income strategies is not going to be the most thrilling day, right? And the content was dreadful. I looked around the room, and I was the youngest person in there by 20 years. I was the only person of colour in a room of about 100 plus. And the content was rubbish. We had to break out into exercise with these people, and I just didn't rate them at all, to be honest. And I just came away thinking how, like, I was, so just prior to that, I launched my own business, done it completely on my own, took a massive risk, and it was going well and stuff, but I'm one of those, I always want to get better. And I'm looking around this room and I'm thinking, how am I going to get better in this room? And who am I going to bounce ideas off? Where's the content going to come from that's going to make me grow? And I just couldn't see it. And me and Adam Carolan went to, who was the co-founder. We went to a pub, and we sat down this pub, and I sort of whinged on about this. And he's like, well, let's do something then. Like, right. And this is I promise you this is true. And I know a lot of founders have this same story, but it's hilarious. We grabbed a napkin from the bar and a pen, and we sat down, and we went, what are the problems? And we started writing the problems. And on the other side, we wrote down, right, well, what are our red lines? What are our values here, whatever. One of the things was be good or be gone, which we still talk about quite a lot. But we just both had this thing where we were like, well, look, if we can't see the room, let's create the room. So we did that. We started a little Facebook group with a few people we knew on Twitter, stuff like that, who we rated, who were, and it isn't an age thing, but perhaps at the younger end of the scale or the more forward-thinking end of the scale. And a real diverse group of people brought them together and said, look, here's a space where we think you're all right, let's chat, etc. And it grew from that. And then us understanding the problems of these people, because we were financial advisors ourselves and we were running business ourselves. We understood what the problems were. Nobody was tackling the problems. So we built solutions to the problems. We built a real sense of community. It's all about helping each other out and raising the tide together, as opposed to trying to compete with one another, which people still couldn't really understand. But where we are today is, 1,000 paying members, another community with about 500 plus in, all sorts of solutions to all sorts of problems. But that sense of community has never gone away. I adore everyone in there. Absolutely adore everyone in there. It's a tightest knit group. When we have conferences, they sell out immediately. It's so much fun. It's a great place to be, and I'm really proud of it, Nick. I must say, like I think it's okay sometimes to say that you're actually proud of something that you've done, and not be too humble about it. I'm really proud of it, because what I see now for people is people coming into the profession who want to launch a firm, or who are second careerists or whatever else, have a place to go. I didn't have that. They've got all this support now to lean on, peers, the lot, and we feel like we've created the room. And now it's a case of just getting the message out a little bit wider, getting more people involved, and people can now always feel included, and don't have to sit on the sidelines. So I'm proud.
You should be proud. And I think it's one of the finest examples of a community which promotes collaboration over competition. And as somebody who works in lots of communities and lots of different spaces, that it's the finest example that I see. Because it does have that kind of real tight-knit feel. And even for somebody outside the industry, that when I'm in, I feel like what part of the team, and that's a really nice feeling. And I think that it's created by the culture that you and the team have set. So amazing stuff. Amazing.
It is, and like shout out to you, Nick, as well, because obviously the bit that you're involved with a few bits with NextGen, but the main bit I'd say you're involved with is our speaker and influencer program. And again, that is a program whereby we give people the skills for free. We give them all the coaching with mental wellbeing coaches like yourself, Nick, presentation coaches, speaking coaches, storytelling coaches, etc. And we give them all the skills to be able to deliver a 10-minute TED talk, right? And then we invite loads of events managers from across the piece to come and watch them. And there's over 1,000 people came and watched last year at this massive virtual conference, just so we can change the dial. So we don't want the same people on the same stages, whatever. Give people the skills, upskill them, get them to a place where they can deliver messages from all sorts of backgrounds. And that's how you change professions from the inside out. You give people the skills, you give them the ability to do it, and they can go change it for us. And it's worked so well so far. We've got another 100 on. I know we've just kicked off a few days ago, didn't we? The first intro, another 100 on for this year. And
very excited for the new cohort.
Some of the results of that, amazing. And thank you for all your support with that, Nick. Amazing work.
Oh, thank you. No, I love working with you guys, genuinely. And so before I let you go, the question I need to ask you, that I ask everybody that comes on the show, is I'm just about to announce you to the stage, and now the MC of the O2 Arena in London. 20,000 people paid their hard-earned money to come and hear you do your thing. Just about to introduce you to the stage. You sat in the green room, and you hear me call your name, and your walk-on music kicks in, booms in. Rohan, what would your walk-on music be and why?
I'm wondering what 20,000 people would want to see me do at the O2, Nick. I'm presuming I'm not taking off my clothes. It's the full boxing.
Getting your head shaved for charity, I think, would be worth seeing.
Good question. I'd probably go with it's a real sort of chest out, feel good song. Rolling Stones' "Sympathy for the Devil." So, because just that first line, please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste. Like, how good is that? Like, it's a great opening line, and it's a lovely intro and stuff. I'd probably go for that, I think.
I love that. So that and every other choice from season 6 is going to be available at the end of the season on a playlist coming to your ears soon. In the meantime, Rohan, give a big round of applause.
Thank you, mate. Appreciate it, Nick.
Thank you from me to you and everybody else. I know everybody else would have enjoyed that as much as I did. Love talking to you always. And if anybody wants to connect with Rohan, then all of his details are going to be in the bio. Please do reach out. If you want to know more about NextGen, that's also going to be in the bio, so do look him up. And in the meantime, stay tuned. Episode 2 coming next week. We have Captain Dougie Ward of Her Majesty's Armed Forces speaking about actually diversity and inclusion in the armed forces. An amazing episode coming as well. So stay tuned, stay subscribed, liked, and all whatever it's going to take to get you coming back. I'm not a details guy. And I'll see you then. So take care. See you soon. Have a great week ahead. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye. Bye.